how do you actually know that what you're experiencing right now at this exact second is real?
I mean, that is the ultimate question, isn't it?
It really is.
We rely so entirely on our sensory input, our eyes, our ears, our sense of touch, to tell us what is happening around us.
Right.
But history, psychology, and, philosophy all warn us that those senses are notoriously unreliable.
Yeah, if you really think about it, our senses are incredibly easy to trick.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a mirage on a highway or a magic trick or, a hallucination.
Right.
So if we can't fully trust the basic hardware we use to perceive the world, how do we escape that trap?
It's tough.
Today, we're going to synthesize two incredibly different frameworks for this deep dive to figure this out.
Yes, and it's a wild pairing.
It is. We are starting with a 2,400-year-old philosophical masterpiece, and then we are going to test it using a surprisingly profound modern thought experiment involving, of all things, a boiled potato.
Which sounds ridiculous, I know. But while those sources span millennia, they are both fundamentally designed to rescue you from the exact same danger.
And what's that?
The danger of blindly accepting your immediate, unexamined perceptions as the ultimate truth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we want to figure out what is real, we first have to understand just how easily we can be completely fooled.
Totally.
So set the scene for us. Where do we start?
Well, we need to travel back to ancient Greece, specifically to Plato's Republic.
Okay, sitting the Wayback Machine.
Right. So in it, Socrates is having a dialogue with this young man named Glaucon, and he asks him to imagine a deeply unsettling scenario.
Unsettling is putting it mildly.
Yeah, he describes this subterranean cave.
Yeah.
And inside this cave are people who have been imprisoned there since childhood.
Wow.
And their imprisonment is absolute. They are chained by their necks and their ankles.
So they can't even move.
No, they cannot turn their heads, they cannot look at each other, and they cannot even look down at their own bodies.
That's just horrifying.
It's a dark image. All they can do is stare straight ahead at a blank stone wall.
That is terrifying. So they have zero context for their own existence.
None. Zero. Now, behind them, much deeper in the cave, there is a huge fire continuously burning.
Okay.
And between that fire and the chained prisoners, there is a raised walkway with a low wall.
Like a stage or something.
Sort of, yeah. Socrates describes people walking along this wall, unseen by the prisoners, holding up various objects over the edge.
Like puppets, right.
Exactly. Puppets shaped like people, animals, everyday items. And because the bright fire is behind these puppets, it projects massive flickering shadows onto the wall that the prisoners are staring at.
So the prisoners are basically just watching a continuous shadow play.
Yes. And it gets even more immersive because the cave has acoustics.
Oh, like an echo.
Right. When the unseen people carrying the puppets speak, their voices echo off the cave walls.
And since the prisoners can't turn around...
Exactly. Because the prisoners can only see the shadows, their brains naturally connect the echoing voices to the movements on the wall.
Oh, wow.
To the prisoners, the shadows are the actual things speaking.
It's like being strapped into an ultra-immersive movie theater from the literal second you were born.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, your head is locked in place, the surround sound is perfectly calibrated, and the screen is the entirety of your universe.
Yes.
If that screen is the only thing you have ever experienced, you wouldn't even possess the concept of a representation of reality.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
You wouldn't know you were in a theater. To you, that screen is reality.
What's fascinating here is how Plato uses this dramatic, claustrophobic image to explain something called the analogy of the divided line.
Okay, the divided line, what does that mean?
He argues that human experience is divided into two distinct realms, the visible world and the intelligible world.
Okay.
The shadows on the cave wall represent the visible world. They are distorted, blurred, secondhand copies of reality.
Because they're just reflections.
Right. The prisoners rely entirely on physical sensation, which Plato argues is the absolute lowest form of understanding because it's so easily manipulated.
So the physical things we can touch and see, Plato is saying those are just the shadows.
In his framework, yes. The objects casting the shadows, and ultimately the massive world outside the cave, represent the intelligible world.
The real stuff.
Exactly. These are the true forms of things. The underlying concepts that can only be grasped by the intellect, by deep reason, mathematics, philosophy, rather than by just looking at them with your eyes.
So these prisoners are living in a world of pure manufactured illusion, but they would defend it as unquestionable fact.
Because it's all they know.
Right. But the story doesn't end there. If the visible world is just a movie screen, what happens when someone is forcefully ripped out of the theater?
Well, Socrates proposes that one of the prisoners is suddenly released.
Okay.
They are forced to stand up, turn around, and look directly at the fire and the puppets. And the text emphasizes a very specific physical reality. It hurts.
Right, because their eyes have literally never been exposed to actual light.
The fire physically burns their retinas. They are overwhelmed by the glare.
Ouch.
Yeah, and in that moment of agonizing discomfort, if you were to tell this newly freed person that the crude wooden puppet they're struggling to focus on is more real than the crisp, familiar shadows they've spent their entire life studying,
They wouldn't believe you.
exactly, they would reject it entirely.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The freed prisoner actually actively resists the truth.
Yes, very strongly.
In his pain, Socrates says the prisoner wants to turn away and run back to his chains because the shadows are clearer and more comfortable to him.
It's human nature.
Is this like an allegory for cognitive dissonance? Is this why people get so intensely defensive when you challenge their fundamental worldview?
You are tapping directly into a major, centuries-old scholarly debate surrounding this exact text.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Academics have argued for a long time about the underlying mechanics of the prisoner's resistance. Like, why do we fight so hard to stay in the dark?
Right. Why not just embrace the truth?
Well, there are two major camps here. The epistemological view and the political view.
Wait, what does epistemological actually mean in this context?
Sure. So epistemology is the study of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, how we know what we know and the limits of human understanding.
Got it.
A scholar named Richard Lewis Nettleship prominently championed this view. He argued that the cave represents our innate intellectual laziness and incapacity.
Oh, so we're just lazy.
Kind of, yeah. We stay in the cave because the truth is cognitively demanding. It requires massive mental effort to abandon everything you thought you knew and learn a whole new paradigm.
That makes sense.
The shadows are just easier to digest. We prefer the comfort of the familiar over the arduous labor of seeking wisdom.
It's the difference between scrolling through short, curated videos on your phone versus reading a dense, challenging book that might actually change your mind about something.
Exactly.
We actively choose the easier path. What is the political view then?
The political lens, which was argued by scholars like A.S. Ferguson and later expanded by Hannah Arendt, suggests that the cave isn't just about personal laziness.
Oh, okay.
It symbolizes human nature being actively corrupted by prevailing political conditions.
Oh, wow.
And to be clear, we're just impartially reporting on what the sources say here, not taking any sort of political side. But Arnott argued that Plato was showing how a corrupt state keeps its citizens docile through manipulation.
So propaganda, basically.
Yes. Think about how propaganda works. A ruling class, the puppet masters, creates a narrative.
And they project it on the wall.
Exactly. They project that shadow onto the wall so relentlessly that the citizens not only believe it, but they will actually police each other to maintain the illusion.
Oh, so the shadows are manufactured political narratives designed to keep people chained up.
Precisely. And this debate gets quite heated. The philosopher Martin Heidegger came along and offered a completely different interpretation, arguing that escaping the cave was about a personal transformation of the soul.
A spiritual thing.
Right, that the essence of truth is a way of being rather than finding an objective fact. But Hannah Arendt heavily criticized Heidegger for this.
She didn't buy it.
Not at all. She felt his take was completely off base because it stripped away the vital political warning Plato was making.
Ah.
To Arendt, ignoring the puppet masters ignores the literal danger that philosophers and truth-tellers face when confronting corrupt, tyrannical power.
It is wild that a story about ancient people looking at shadows has sparked centuries of academic throwing down.
He really is.
But let's get back to our resisting prisoner. He wants to run away, but Socrates says he is dragged by force up a rough, steep ascent until he is pulled completely out of the cave and into the light of the sun.
And again, the immediate result is suffering. The radiant, infinite light of the actual sun completely overwhelms him. He is initially blinded.
But slowly, he adjusts to the real world.
Yes.
First, he can only bear to look at shadows on the ground outside, which makes sense. He's seeking what's familiar to his brain.
Right. Baby steps.
Then he can look at the reflections of trees and people in the water. Then he can finally look at the objects themselves.
And I keep scaling up.
Yeah. Eventually, he can look at the stars and the moon at night. And finally, only after a long period of painful adjustment, can he look directly at the sun.
which in Plato's philosophy is the ultimate goal.
Right.
The physical sun represents the form of the good. It is the absolute source of all truth, illuminating the intelligible world just as the fire illuminated the fake world of the cave.
Wow.
Once the prisoner can perceive the sun, he has achieved true, unshakable knowledge.
He's reached enlightenment. He knows what's real. But the journey doesn't end there, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Philosophically, he doesn't get to just hang out in paradise, right? He has an obligation.
Socrates argues that the philosopher who has ascended to this highest level of understanding must return.
He has to go back.
Yes. He pities his friends still chained to the wall in the dark. He is morally obligated to go back down into the cave, dwell with the prisoners, and try to free them.
But the return trip goes horribly wrong.
It's a disaster.
Because his eyes are now accustomed to the brilliant sunlight, he is essentially blind in the dark cave.
Can't see the shadows clearly anymore.
He stumbles around. To the chained prisoners, he just looks like an absolute fool.
And look at the logical inference the prisoners make.
Okay.
Based entirely on their limited, shadow-based reality, they conclude that the journey to the outside world actively damaged him.
Because he can't function in their world anymore.
Right. It broke his ability to function in the real world. Socrates concludes that if the chained prisoners were physically able to, they would reach out and literally kill anyone who attempted to unchain them and drag them toward the light.
So, what does this all mean? We have this foundational text of Western philosophy, but it feels like the underlying anxiety of the cave is still everywhere today.
Oh, the cultural footprint of this allegory is staggering. Once you understand the framework of the cave, you start seeing it in almost every piece of modern media that questions reality.
You definitely see it heavily in science fiction.
Oh, heavily. The Matrix is essentially a one-to-one cyberpunk retelling of the cave.
Oh, for sure.
The pods are the chains, the Matrix itself is the shadow on the wall, and Neo, taking the red pill, is the painful, blinding ascent into the real world.
And you see it in The Truman Show, too, where Truman's entire idyllic life is a manufactured shadow cast by a television studio.
Excellent example.
Ray Bradbury used it as a foundational theme in Fahrenheit 451 when exploring how state-controlled media manipulates perception.
Yes, the wall-sized TVs.
Exactly. It even shows up in modern video games, like Honkai Star Rail heavily draws on the allegory in their Amphorius story arc regarding the character Lycurgus.
Right.
They use it to explore whether a manufactured paradise is worth living in if it isn't, actually real.
It's incredible how adaptable the metaphor is. We keep retelling the same story to ourselves, just updating the technology.
Why do you think that is?
Because the core warning remains deeply relevant. Francis Bacon, the famous philosopher and father of empiricism, coined a phrase called the idols of the cave.
Idols of the cave.
Yeah, he used it to describe our idiosyncratic biases, the way our individual backgrounds, our upbringing, and our personal preoccupations distort our reasoning.
Like an echo chamber.
Exactly. We all live in our own personal caves.
I really like that phrase, idols of the cave. We don't just watch shadows. We create custom-made shadows based on what we want to believe.
Exactly. And modern psychological interpretations lean into that heavily.
Really?
Yeah. There's a fascinating episode of the television show Legion where the actor John Hamm narrates a modernized segment of the allegory.
I think I've seen that.
Right. But instead of using it to talk about political corruption like Hannah Arendt did, the show uses the cave as a metaphor for narcissism and the mental impact of social media.
Oh, wow. The glowing rectangles we stare at all day.
Yep.
We literally carry miniature caves around in our pockets. We stare at highly curated, filtered shadows of other people's lives. And we will aggressively fight anyone who tries to tell us it's not the full picture of reality.
It's so true. Whether it is an ancient stone wall illuminated by firelight or a modern smartphone screen illuminated by LEDs, humanity still actively fights to stay in the dark.
We really do.
We consistently prefer a comfortable, predictable illusion to a painful, complex truth.
Which brings us to a massive question.
Okay.
Plato warns us that our senses are lying to us and that society is projecting shadows to keep us distracted.
Right.
But if we can't trust our eyes or our ears or our screens, how do we actually test what is real?
We need a test.
Exactly. We need a literal litmus test for reality. And that takes us to our second source for today, a modern document exploring the concept of intrinsic versus borrowed existence using a boiled potato.
It is a profound shift in tone from ancient Greek philosophy to kitchen cookware, I know.
Just a bit.
But the underlying logic perfectly mirrors Plato's search for an ultimate, unshakable truth.
Let's walk through this logic chain slowly because it is so simple, but the implications are basically devastating.
Okay, let's do it.
The text asks you to consider a boiled potato that has just been taken out of a pot, and it asks a very basic sensory question. Is the potato hot?
And your immediate sensory answer, the shadow on the wall, is yes.
Right.
If you touch the potato, it burns your hand. The potato is undeniably hot.
But then the text asks, is the potato's heat intrinsic or is it borrowed?
Intrinsic meaning it generates it naturally. Borrowed meaning it got it from somewhere else.
Exactly. And potatoes don't naturally generate high heat. It borrowed that heat from the boiling water it was sitting in. Therefore, heat is not the potato's true nature.
So we move one step down the chain. Is the water's heat intrinsic or borrowed?
Water isn't naturally boiling hot. It can be room temperature, it can freeze into ice. The water had to borrow its heat from the metal pot it was poured into.
And the pot. Does a metal pot intrinsically generate heat?
No, metal is just a conductor. The pot borrowed the heat from the fire beneath it on the stove.
Okay.
So we finally trace the chain all the way back to the source. We ask, is the fire's heat intrinsic?
And the answer is yes. Fire doesn't borrow heat from somewhere else. Heat is the very definition of what fire is. It is intrinsic.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text introduces a crucial, absolute rule for defining reality.
What's the rule?
The rule is this: that which is truly real does not change. It does not come and go.
Wait, let me make sure I'm grasping this. Intrinsic existence means it is permanent and unchanging. Borrowed existence means it is temporary. It comes and goes.
Yes. If something is the ultimate reality, it cannot be subject to creation, alteration, or destruction.
So apply that rigorous test to the fire. Does fire change? Does it come and go?
Well, I mean, yes, it does. A campfire burns through its wood and eventually turns into ash and smoke. The fire goes out.
Exactly.
Even on a cosmic scale, massive things like suns and stars, which are basically giant fires, eventually exhaust their fuel and burn out over billions of years. They change. They die.
And therefore, according to this philosophical framework, because fire comes and goes, because it eventually changes state, ultimately, even the fire is not real.
Wow.
It is just another temporary state of existence.
Okay, wait. I need a second here because you are breaking my brain a little bit.
That's heavy.
If the potato's heat isn't real, and the water isn't real, and the pot isn't real, and the rule is that anything that changes isn't ultimately real.
Yeah.
What about us?
Huh.
What about the listener sitting here right now?
That is the exact existential tension the text wants you to confront.
I am confronted.
If you apply this test of ultimate reality to yourself, you have to look at your physical form. The text refers to this as the body-mind.
The body-mind. So like my physical flesh and blood and my active firing neurons, my thoughts.
Yes, the totality of your human experience. Now ask the question, is your body-mind permanent? Or is it temporary?
Obviously, it is temporary.
Right. There was a vast stretch of time before you were born when your specific body-mind did not exist.
And it exists right now.
And inevitably, there will be a time in the future when it ceases to function and does not exist again. It comes and goes. It changes constantly.
So by the rule of the potato, my physical existence is borrowed.
Yes. You are borrowing your existence from what the text calls the source.
The source.
Source is existence itself, the underlying infinite reality that does not change, regardless of what scientific or spiritual name you assign to it.
Okay.
Because your physical body-mind is temporary and borrowed. Ultimately, in the grandest philosophical sense, your physical body is not the ultimate reality.
It's a shadow on the wall.
It is a shadow on the wall.
I feel like I'm sliding back down into the cave here, into the dark.
It can feel bleak at first.
If my entire life, my body and my thoughts are just borrowed existence that comes and goes, do I even matter? Does any of this mean anything?
Which, I mean, this raises an important question. Does having a temporary borrowed existence mean that you are fake?
Harvey?
Let's go back to the potato one last time. While the potato is holding that borrowed heat from the fire, if you touch it, does it burn you?
Yes. It hurts.
So in that specific moment, even though the heat is entirely borrowed and temporary, the heat is genuinely real.
Okay, I see.
The experience of the burn is an undeniable fact.
Right.
In the exact same way, the fact that your body-mind's existence is temporary and borrowed from the source does not mean that you do not exist right now.
Oh.
You do exist right now.
Yeah.
And while you exist, you are genuinely real.
Oh, wow. That is a massive aha moment. It completely flips the perspective.
Doesn't it?
The text actually explicitly states, in this light, your source as that which your body-mind is borrowing its existence from, and one way that that source is appearing is your body-mind. You aren't just the boiled potato. You are the infinite fire, experiencing what it is like to be a potato for a little while.
It resolves the existential panic perfectly. The physical human form is bound by time. It is temporary, but the source it borrows its existence from is not physical, and it is not bound by time.
You are the source appearing in human form. And the proof is so beautifully, elegantly simple.
What's the proof?
The evidence is just the absolute, undeniable fact that you are sitting here listening to this, aware that you exist.
Exactly.
The text summarizes it perfectly. You are timeless being, temporarily appearing in human.
It really brings us full circle and resolves the tension of Plato's cave.
It really does.
Plato told us to distrust the physical shadows and seek the eternal, unchanging truth of the sun. This modern text takes it a step further.
How so?
It tells us that yes, the physical body and the material world are the temporary shadows. But the deep awareness looking out through your eyes, the very fact that you know you exist, is the eternal sun itself.
What an incredible journey we've just taken.
It's a trip.
We started off trapped alongside prisoners, chained in a claustrophobic, dark cave, completely mistaking projected shadows on a wall for absolute truth.
Right.
We climbed the agonizing steep ascent up into the blinding light of the sun to discover higher reasoning and the danger of political manipulation.
Yep.
And then we walked right back down into our own kitchens with the boiled potato, testing the very physics of heat and reality, all to discover that while our human forms are temporary, the awareness experiencing all of this is timeless.
It is not an easy paradigm to accept.
Not at all.
It requires a profound, often uncomfortable shift in perspective to accept that what we see, touch, and feel isn't the final answer, but rather a temporary borrowed expression of something much deeper and much older.
We want to leave you with one final thought to chew on today, merging these two incredible sources together.
Oh, right.
If our physical body-mind is just a temporary, borrowed shadow flickering on the wall of the cave, and the timeless source is the fire casting the light who or what is the sign-bearer walking in front of the fire, choosing to cast the specific, unique shadow that is you.
Now, that is a thought to chew on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the shadows.